Hello, math application students. Today we're going to talk about sequences that are arithmetic and the recurrence relationship. Okay, let's look at an example. If I'm given a formula that my term is equal to the previous term plus 3, so the common difference is 3, and my first term is 4, if I ask you to find the first 4 terms or plot these on a graph. Okay, so before we can plot them on the graph, we need to figure out the first 4 terms, right? Okay, so if we already know t sub 1, so what about t sub 2? Okay, using this formula, this t sub 2 is equal to t sub 1, the previous term, plus 3. Okay, the previous term is 4, right? So that's equal to 4 plus 3, which is equal to 7. That's t sub 2. Okay, now the third term, t sub 3 is equal to t sub 2 plus 3, right? And t sub 2 is 7, so 7 plus 3 is equal to 10. All right, let's do the next one. T sub 4 is equal to t sub 3 plus 3, right? We're following this equation. So t sub 3 is 10, right? 10 plus 3 equals 13. All right, so we've got the first 4 terms, right? So we're going to plot 4, 7, 10, and 13. So 4, so when n is 1, 2, 3, 4, the first term is 4, so it's about there. The second term is 7, which is about there. And then the third term is 10, which is about there. The fourth term is 13, which is about there. Okay? It makes a straight line when we've got an arithmetic recurrence, doesn't it? Now let's try to find an equation on how to get an arithmetic sequence using the D. Let's find the general formula. So if I've got the first term, that's the same thing as writing u sub 1, isn't it? Okay, my second term is this value plus d, u sub 1 plus d. All right. The third term is equal to what we have here, u sub 1 plus d, also adding d, right? Because this one is d higher than that one, so that's equal to u sub 1 plus 2d. The fourth term is equal to this value, u sub 1 plus 2d, and we're adding an additional d, right, to go that much higher, right? So we end up with, we're adding d to this value, which is equal to u sub 1 plus 3d. So let's look at this relationship. If u sub 4 is equal to u sub 1 plus 3d, the eighth term should be equal to, make a guess, think about it. All of these begin with u sub 1. This is going to be u sub 1. Here, when u sub 3, we had 2d. U sub 4, we had 3d. This is always 1 less than this, isn't it? So 1 less than 8 is going to give me 7d. Okay. If you have trouble with this, you might want to replay the video. Okay, so u sub n, we're always starting with u sub 1, isn't it? So we end up with u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Okay, now one of the ways, so this is the way IB likes to use the equation. Now, MathSpace likes to think of it this way. U sub n is equal to the previous term. So what is the previous value to n minus 1? The previous term to n minus 1 is going to be u sub n. If this is 4, this is going to be 3, right? And the previous term this is going to be the previous term to this. And what are we always adding? We're always adding d. So this is the formula that MathSpace likes to use. This is the formula that IB likes to use. So when you're doing your MathSpace homework, you're going to be using this equation. But I want you to think about this equation also. Okay, let's look at our next example. Okay, so we've got these two equations. We're going to be using this top one because that's how MathSpace likes this. Okay, so we've got an equation here. We want first, I want you to find the common difference, d. Okay. Well, from looking at this, you can see it's increasing by 2, right? Plus 2, plus 2, plus 2. Okay, so d is going to be equal to 2, right? All right. Now, if I want to find the equation for this, we're going to say u sub n is equal to u sub n minus 1 plus the common difference, d, right? That's our equation that we're using from MathSpace here, right? And d we just said is 2, so u sub n is going to be equal to u sub n minus 1 plus 2. And we know that the first term, u sub 1, is equal to 4. Okay? Now if I wanted to write it the IB way, this is the IB way. The IB way would be writing it as u sub n equals 4 plus n minus 1 times 2. Okay, this is the way IB would write it, and in IB we would simplify this as u sub n equals 4 plus 2n minus 2, right? If I did distributive property with a 2, and this would simplify as u sub n equals 4 minus 2 is 2, 2 plus 2n. This is the way you would be writing your answer in IB, but for MathSpace we're going to be writing our answer like this. So when you're entering it into the computer, this is the way you're going to want to have it. Okay, now let's do another example. Consider that we've got u sub 3 equals 14 and u sub 12 equals 59. Okay, and I want you to find d. Okay, so let's think of it this way. If I'm using my equation, we're using which equation? We're using this equation, u sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. All right? So let's think of it this way. If n equals 3, then we've got u sub 3 equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Well, 3 minus 1, that gives me 2, right? So 2d. Okay. What about if I've got, if n is 12? If n is 12, then I've got u sub 12 equals u sub 1 plus, okay, so this is 1 less than 12, right? 12 minus 1, this is going to be 11d. Hit pause if you need to think about this. Using this formula, this is the number 1 less than this. So if n is 12, this is going to be 11. If n is 3, this here is going to be 2. Now, if I want to use elimination or substitution, okay, first of all, u sub 3 is 14, right? And u sub 12 is 59, right? Okay, so I'm going to just rewrite these equations. We've got 14 equals u sub 1 plus 2d, and 59 equals u sub 1 plus 11d. Now, if I want to use elimination or substitution, I'm going to use elimination, because if I do elimination from what we learned in algebra, u sub 1 minus u sub 1, that's going to go away. What is 14 minus 59? Negative 45. What is 2d minus 11d? That's going to give me negative 9d. All right. Now, if I divide both sides by negative 9, what is negative 45 divided by negative 9? That's going to give me 5, right? This is going to give me 5. So d is equal to 5. Okay. Now, what if I want to find u sub 1? Okay. Well, if I want to find u sub 1, and now I know d, I could take one of these equations. Let's take this equation. 14 equals u sub 1 plus 2d. All right, now that we know d is 5, right, I'm going to replace d here with 5, right? So then I end up with 14 equals u sub 1 plus 2 times 5. Okay, because I'm replacing d with 5. Okay, so now I've got 14 equals u sub 1 plus 10. Well, if I subtract 10 on both sides, I end up with u sub 1 equals 4. Okay, and then if I ask you to write a recursive formula, okay, if I ask you to write the recursive formula, in IB, we would be writing it like this. U sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d, and we would replace d with 5 and u sub 1 with 4. So in IB, we would say u sub 1 equals 4 plus n minus 1 times 5. And that would be simplified to u sub n equals 4 plus 5n minus 5. And then we could say 4 minus 5, that's going to give me negative 1. U sub n equals negative 1 plus 5n. Okay. In IB, we would be writing it this way. Now, in math space, they're having you think of it, write it this way. They're asking you to write it as u sub n equals the previous term, u sub n minus 1 plus d. Okay, so we would write this as u sub n equals u sub n minus 1 plus 5. That's how they're going to ask you to put it into the computer in math space. And what is u sub 1? U sub 1, we're using the value of 4. Okay, so in paint orange, this is what they're going to ask you to write it in math space. On the IB test, you're probably going to have to write it this way. All right, good luck on your work.